Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. We really appreciate all your presence. We're going to try to get things started. We have a full conversation today. We have some great speakers, and we're really excited that they were all able to join us. Before we get started, I'd like to invite Mayor Marlin up to give you all a welcome.
With my chopsticks in hand. So, well, I will just take a minute to say thank you all for coming. Welcome you to the Broadway Food Hall. Thank you to Matt Cho for setting this up, to First State Bank for sponsoring this. We're delighted to have you here and to share this space with you. And this is going to be a really interesting discussion because there's a lot going on in downtown Urbana, and many of you are part of it, and we're just thrilled. So I'll turn it back over to Libby, and enjoy your lunch. And again, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could all give a round of applause as well for Broadway Food Hall for making this all work. This is a very large event, and I'd like to thank them. Additionally, this event would not have been made possible without some very generous support from First State Bank, and I'd like to invite Jerry Smith up to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out on a dreary day. I feel honored to be between the mayor and such a distinguished group we're going to have, so I'm looking forward to the program, so I'll make it real quick here. We've done business with some of you here, and we appreciate that. We'd like to do more for the rest of you. Hope we get a chance to do that over the course of time. We do a lot of investor real estate, similar type projects. I know a lot of you are involved in that. I would like to quickly introduce our commercial lender, Bryce Huskrat, and Adam Hodges, our mortgage lender, and they've got information up on the front table if you want to grab that on the way out. But any of us would love to talk to you about potential projects you have. And as a matter of fact, we had a discussion this morning, and we know it's very competitive out there, but we're going to have a further discussion tomorrow morning. We're probably going to be coming out with some 7-year fixed rate financing. In a rising interest rate environment, we think that'll probably interest some of you. So please see us about that. Other than that, enjoy the program, and we're glad to be the sponsor.
Thank you, Jay. So I wanted to introduce our 5 speakers. All 5 of our speakers were chosen as they are doing innovative things in Urbana. Many are downtown. Matt Riggs is not. So all of them are doing things. Many of them are basing off of the local culture here that we have in Urbana, and then starting new businesses. And they brought different new businesses into the downtown Urbana and beyond, and they are all thriving and expanding and doing great, and we're really excited. So without further ado, I would like to pass this over to them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their businesses.
All right. Okay, need to see how loud this is. So my name is Chris Lukeman. Together with my wife, Ann, we opened CU Adventures in Time and Space, the escape room that's approximately like 2.5 blocks that way. If you have no idea what an escape room is, this is probably not the right venue to explain, but it's a live action puzzle game where we get teams of friends, families, companies, school groups, nursing home groups, bachelor parties, like all sorts of people come together, and we have themed, kind of designed game spaces where teams of 2 to 10 players look for clues and use those to solve a series of puzzles and challenges. It's a little bit like a game show, a little bit like a murder mystery thing, but we opened in October 2015, downtown Urbana, with 2 games, and since then we've expanded to a second location in downtown Urbana around the corner. We have a large warehouse space that we do workshop stuff in, and we're getting ready for a big expansion this summer to a whole new location. And we could not have done it without downtown Urbana, which I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. I was able to go full-time with the business 6 months in. We were able to bootstrap completely while working full-time jobs. And come and visit us sometime.
Hi, my name is Matt Riggs. I'm with Riggs Beer Company out on High Cross Road. We are not in downtown Urbana, but our beer is, so at multiple locations. So we're a brewery. We process grain and hops into beer. That's a pretty simple way to explain it, but that's actually how simple the business is. That's what we do. We process raw ingredient, a lot of it that we grow ourselves on our farm here in Champaign County. Barley, corn, and wheat. About 1,200 pounds of that a month from our farm gets processed into beer. And then right now we obviously also buy commercial grain from suppliers and process that into beer as well. We have a tap room out at High Cross Road that's open 4 nights a week. The brewery's running 7 days a week. It employs 4 people full-time, and we have 15 part-time bartenders that help us tend the bar. About 75% of our volume, liquid volume, goes out wholesale to about 300 different bars and restaurants throughout central Illinois. We just opened up the Peoria market about 2 weeks ago, so that shows you kind of the scope. We go from the state line over to Peoria and down to the metro east area of St. Louis, East St. Louis. Yeah, I think that's the basic intro. We're about 1.5 years old, so although my brother and I were born and raised on a farm in southeast Champaign County, we both went to school here. We were gone for quite a while before coming back and doing the brewery, so we don't have a lot of in-depth business history with how Urbana's been operated in the past, but in the last 1.5 years, this is all we've been doing, so looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Memoir. I think you have to open your ear to hear my English is a little... I'm French speaker, so I'm trying to speak in English. Yeah, 2 years ago, I think, we opened the African store in town. Me and my wife, Lisette, she's over there, I think. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's over there. So it was hard to us to try to open business in the US because we didn't know how everything worked here. But God put someone in our way, Mr. Mike Hauser. He helped us a lot, and Mr. Dan. So we are excited, and we're trying to grow. So I think very soon we'll open another location, like a restaurant and African event center. It's coming soon, so I think that's it.
Thank you, Memoir. My name is Mike Hosier from our rentals, and I do real estate development, largely in Champaign, but in the past few years I've been focusing on Urbana just because of the opportunities over here and a lot of the cooperation I've received from City of Urbana, their staff, and then also just the excellent tenants they sent my way. I've got actually 3 of the panelists today are tenants of mine, and Urbana has been very helpful in pointing tenants my way and assisting with property acquisition and then build out as well. So I'm pretty excited about what's going on in Urbana, and hope it continues. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Zimmerman, and I'm the founder of a company that probably none of you even knew was in Urbana. We're a pavement engineering company called, okay, a couple people know. We're a pavement engineering company, which is a specialized field within civil engineering. And we started in Urbana about 25 years ago, so I guess I'm the old-time Urbana person on the panel. I'm also a resident in Urbana, so I have a special affinity for this location. Our company does all kinds of specialized engineering in the area of pavement across the country and actually internationally. So we have about 50 employees, and only about half of them live in this area. Other ones are located in different locations across the country. But we've been here since we founded the company at its beginning, and we're happy to be part of the Urbana scene.
Thank you all. So I think some of this, all of our questions, they've touched on, and we're going to go a little bit more into depth as we continue on in this luncheon. So I'd first like to ask a little bit about the different resources that you all use to open your business. That was both locally as well as everywhere else. If you could, let me know.
Sure. I mean, when we started doing this business it was completely a labor of love. We 100% bootstrapped it, but we could not have jumped in without the Urbana Business Opening Grant and the Urbana Development Grant. They were huge to secure that downtown Urbana was the right place for us, and to help us in the unique position where we were 100% just putting all we had into it and seeing if it stuck. My wife and I come from an independent film background where no one gets paid for anything. You never get any money. It's just money out, money out, money out. And it's still great, but it was great working at an artistic endeavor that gets, that people actually want to pay to enjoy and really love. And it was great to be incentivized for being a creative business, for working with artists, for actually getting to pay the artists that have worked for free for us, actors, sound designers, musicians, stuff like that. And the downtown Urbana was a great home for that, and the fact that the Business Development Grant incentivizes kind of creative supporting businesses was huge for us.
My answer is going to be a pretty stark contrast to that, actually. We didn't receive any type of incentives. We built the plan to be able to operate without that, and it has, and we're proud of that. I would say, though, that I have been and continue to be impressed with the support I get from the city, especially in the inspection department. I think that there's a misconception that Urbana is hard to work with. And I can tell you definitely from an inspection standpoint that's not the case. They want everything done correctly, but they're also very commonsensical and easy to work with, and you can talk through to develop maybe some creative solutions to unique problems. And I would say that that was refreshing, and in the trade. So when you talk to other concrete guys or contractors, electricians, they all know that Urbana is actually open for business when it comes from a technical standpoint. And I guess I would just reiterate that to the general public. If you're not working with tradesmen very often in your business, you may not know that in that case, Urbana is easy to work with.
Yeah, it was hard to open the business, and the place was ready, but it was empty. No staff in there, but the city with Brandon Boy, they help us a lot too, and we was expending money every time. Like we had the problem with customer communication, so it was hard people to know where we are, if we are opening. So, but we was trying to talk to people by month, and now so a lot of people knows us. So we are well.
Well, I would agree with what Matt has to say about the city and how it is working with the different departments. They are very cooperative. They want to get the job done. They want it to be done right, but they are very cooperative in making suggestions and working with our subcontractors. So I think that's a real plus. Going back 10 years when I first purchased 115 West Main, the Crane Alley building, there were programs back then that helped us with the build out, and they've continued over the years with development agreements, and almost every one of the tenants, my tenants that are up here today, plus others, have taken advantage of city funds and programs to get their businesses open. And Champaign has programs too, but Urbana is really more aggressive and innovative when it comes to trying to get things done over here. And one other thing I wanted to mention, EDC is also very involved in assisting tenants and pointing tenants our way, and then also providing programs for them. So I think EDC is a real key in this as well.
So we are the one of the businesses that's in the Crane Alley building that Mike was talking about, and so when we moved into that building, we benefited from the assistance from the city in the build-out for that space. And that's one of the things we love about being in downtown Urbana is the fact that we have a beautiful building with an interesting space, and there are plenty of places like this available to us. From our perspective, we didn't actually use city resources to get the business started, but there are certain kinds of resources that I think are important to having a culture that supports business, such as Urbana does. For example, our access to the University of Illinois and some of the graduates that come out of that university is very important to us. We hire a lot of entry-level engineers, and to be able to have those engineers that are specialized in transportation, which is something that is not available all over the country, that is definitely beneficial and allows us to grow in this location. We also travel all over the country and all over the world for our projects, and so having access to an airport is especially important to us. Most of our employees fly in and out of Willard. We use Bloomington occasionally, but we try to do it here as much as possible, and that has been really important to us to have the number of flights that we have available, and the increase in the number of airlines that are servicing Willard is very important to us. I think another thing that was important to us when we got started was having a great relationship with a bank. Our business, with its types of receivables and the type of equipment that we buy, is not the standard kind of company that the banks were used to working with. And so part of it was them getting comfortable with our business and how we operate and how money comes in, and having that type of a strong enough relationship that they were willing to work with us on some of the things that have been happening. So we've been able to finance equipment through some of the local banks, and then with the building, getting some city support to help with that build out has been really important.
As we said, we do have multiple tenants of Mike Hosier here, and I'd like to ask you, Mike, you've been able to work with businesses of different sizes, as well as help them start out, as well as they grow. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what enables you to do that, and then if some of your tenants are willing to, tell a little bit about what your experience has been on the other end of that.
So the different tenants in my spaces obviously started with Applied Pavement at 115 about 10 years ago. And that was really, Crane Alley was in the building when we purchased it. That building has gone through, some, evolution over time as the second floor space was taken over by Aptec. But then it's really just, again, being fed a lot by Urbana CD. They point tenants to me, and it's really just, trying to solve the puzzle with, what their needs are in both, space and budget and build out and relationships with contractors. So it's, I've got quite a variety of different tenants, and, the city and the EDC, and Katie mentioned, lenders, that's been important over the years as well. So it's really just responding to the need, because the tenants, everyone is different. I mean, we've got, attorneys, escape room, African grocery store, brewery, sorry. So there's just a lot going on, and yes, from small tenants to large across the street. Carl's in the old Gill buildings is our largest tenant, square footage wise anyway. So it's just it's been nice to work with Urbana. Is the key. They've been very helpful.
Yeah, Mike, you did mention that you work a lot with smaller tenants and you put them together, and I think that's something we've been seeing all over Urbana. Is we've seen a lot of local businesses who are very innovative coming in, and I was hoping you all could tell me a little bit about how you see Urbana is changing. Is this a new thing, or is this just something that's been happening always? I'm newer to this community, I apologize. So I'd just like to know a little bit about what changes you've seen over the past few years in Urbana.
Sure. So we've only been open, 2.5 years, but I graduated in '06 and been around Champaign-Urbana pretty much since then, give or take. And I think I've really seen personally, and then noticed it from a business standpoint, the kind of downtown event atmosphere that's happened in the last year or so, both with some switching around with the Sweet Corn Festival downtown and all of the events that Imbibe has been putting on, has really brought kind of a fresh face to what I'm seeing. Like, I see the families, I see college kids that need to have a concrete reason to come downtown, be downtown. And then we see them come back, and we see them come back, and we see them come back. And that has been something that I didn't necessarily experience when I was a student or a young professional in the community, that I see a lot closer now as a business owner downtown.
So my junior and senior year of college, I tended bar at Todd and John's. Yeah, downtown has changed a little bit since then. For those of you who don't know, that's where the Black Dog is now. It used to be a place that was different than that. Sorry, John, if you're listening. I would say I have a unique perspective when it comes to downtowns in downstate Illinois, because that's where we do a lot of our business. I send my wholesale beer to a lot of downtowns throughout central Illinois. And I think that downtown Urbana is definitely above average when it comes to development. There's a lot going on downtown. The Imbibe thing has been cool. Urbana's quirky by nature, and we all know that, and its downtown fits. I will tell you that downtown Champaign is an absolute beast that doesn't have an equivalent anywhere around here. If you go to any other mid-sized town in central Illinois, the downtowns are really struggling. Then here we are with downtown Urbana with a nice, cool vibe and I think a healthy business climate. But then when you try to compare it to downtown Champaign, right, we're like a third the size. We had a third of the beer velocity. That's what I see, at least. I see where beer flows. And yeah, a heck of a lot more beers flowing in downtown Champaign. But I don't think we need to use that as a metric. I think that's actually harmful if we use that as a metric. It's more fair to look at how do we compare to other cities of a similar size and demographic, and I would say that we're above average. And I would also exercise caution when we try to push development too hard. I was just reading an article the other day, and ironically, we just opened up the Peoria market for our beer wholesale, and we spent the other night at the Pierre Marquette in downtown Peoria, which is now going into foreclosure, and the city of Peoria has a $7 million mortgage on that they are very, very likely going to lose. So forcing a square peg into a round hole just because Champaign has a square peg and a square hole, I think would lead us down a very dangerous path. We've got good infrastructure here, and I think it's moving in the right direction. I think we just need to remain disciplined and keep feeding energy into downtown, but also don't use my property tax to subsidize risky development that private companies should be taking the risk on. That's my opinion.
So I've lived in Urbana for about 35 years now, 37 years, I guess, actually. So I've seen a lot of changes in Urbana over the years. From a business culture, I think that it is much more receptive to business right now. I think the culture, it's exciting what's going on. I think I've participated in a few of the First Friday kinds of events that they have, and there seems to be a lot of vibe, a lot of action during those times, which I think is a positive. But I also think about my personal habits. When I go out to dinner, I usually go to Champaign, and I'd like to see more choices here in Urbana to have available to us. I think the other thing, if you know our building, we're the Crane Alley building, and we are on the upper floors of that, and we have a big window that looks out the back at an old hotel called Jumer's in the past. So every day I see that behemoth, is that the right word? I don't know, that that big old empty hotel from our back window. And that is something that I would really like to see us figure out what to do with that and see if we can come up with a solution.
All in good time. So just one observation that I have about Urbana, and kind of really before I started any investing over here, is really what happened in downtown Urbana before I got here, before I started investing. And that's the other developers like Norman Carroll and Baxley and Alan Strong, and then obviously now Matt Cho, Dan Maloney, and what he's proposing. So I think that's been key. People that early on took a risk and invested in Urbana, I think is really kind of a key, and I think that's kind of paved the way for other developers to come in, and when they see the kind of success that's available or that's possible here. So I think that's a plus, and then all of the other businesses that, really fell in line with that, I think is key. So they really helped, and what the city did with this building, with Broadway, really helped me make a decision on the building across the street, because I just knew that this area was going to turn around once Matt got this going. So it feeds on itself, and I think it's been very positive.
Yeah, for me, I think the good thing for the city is they are helping the people let's say they're pushing people who need to start a business, and it's very helpful. For myself, like the city, when I give them my plan, they say, oh, this is excited, because we never have African food in Champaign or Urbana. And the Department of Development City, they say, okay, let's go work on this plan. So it's a good thing. I think they have to go again.
Thank you. Katie, you touched on a little bit what you'd like to see. I would love to know, what is everybody's hopes? What would they like to see in Urbana in 3 years? And what do they think the next opportunities are?
I think that continued smart development is a good goal. Again, smart development. Let's not chase numbers or project size or something like that just because maybe 2 miles that way there's other numbers. I think that's foolish. Let's be realistic, but let's continue developing Urbana as a place that we want to live in. My wife and I also live here in town, and I think when I drive around the Twin Cities, I think you can tell a difference. The way that Urbana has developed, there's communities that I want to live in, not when they're built, not only when they're built, but 50 years after they're built. I think a lot of the development that we've seen in other areas is development for development's sake, and I think 20 years from now, a lot of those neighborhoods are not going to be desirable neighborhoods. There's not going to be the infrastructure where families can go to the park together and stuff like that. When I see the development out towards us on High Cross Road, all those neighborhoods are well thought out. They've got the parks next to them. They're not just cramming as many multi-family unit houses right next to each other as possible, which in the short term makes your development numbers look better. Let's continue to develop Urbana in a smart way that has a long-term objective of you want to live here and work here. Yeah, so I would just say exercising caution and continuing to plan and develop in a way that makes us want to stay living here 25 years from now, even if that means it's a little bit slower development.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking onto that, less economic and more quality of life, it's easy to take for granted a lot of the cultural amenities that Champaign-Urbana has because we live here and we see them and we sometimes ignore them, sometimes go to them. But like the arts community alone, the arts support is really not something you see anywhere else in the state. Like, it's one of the reasons we love being here. It's one of the reasons our business thrives here. and the resources we can get here and the support we get here, we just wouldn't see in similar population centers outside of metros. Like, it's just not seen. And it's easy to miss that, but I like the continued encouragement of that, the continued development. I'm definitely on the side of the keep Urbana weird sort of spectrum, but that's just my personal opinion. And I just love it here, and I think there's a lot we can offer, and a lot that is literally done nowhere else in the Midwest.
All right, so I guess one of the things I would say, I've already mentioned the Jumer Hotel, but I would like to see more, I think, a focus in the downtown area, and I think that what's happening over the last few years is a good indication of what's happening in the future. We employ a lot of people in the downtown area, and I would like to see them have the opportunity to spend their lunch hours in a place like this, to be able to stay downtown after work, to consider living in Urbana rather than living in Champaign. And I think a lot of the direction that the city is going is in the right direction. I agree with the quality of life that we have here in Urbana is very nice. And so I would just like to encourage that we continue down that path. I think it's moving in the right direction.
So Katie mentioned Jumer's. I'll throw Lincoln Square in. Obviously, it's a key to the development of downtown Urbana. I think the mayor's on the right track, and kind of asking the community what their vision is for Lincoln Square. But it's key. There's going to be a lot of vacant space over there soon. There are going to be people that are currently spending money with businesses in downtown Urbana that are going to be gone. So I think turning that space around is going to really be key in the future of Urbana and what happens downtown specifically. And I know it's a tough nut to crack, but I think there are things in play with the parking that the city has, and just the interest surrounding it. But it's a lot of work, but I think the pieces are in place to try and turn it around, hopefully, soon, because it'll be vacant before we know it, and it'll leave quite a hole in downtown Urbana. No news to anybody.
Yeah, it's good to developing, but also I suggest to the city to have more protecting the business. That will help too. That's my suggestion.
I guess I forgot to mention another thought that I don't really hear talked about in Urbana is that the periphery of our town on like highways and interstate access is also pretty relatively underdeveloped. I mean, if you look traveling around central Illinois where interstate access is and where highway access is, there's been development in places. I think it'd be great if we could fix the hotel situation, don't get me wrong. And it's a long-term thing that we've got to get figured out here, and it's going to be a very hard thing to figure out, obviously. I mean, but I would say there's definitely some low-hanging fruit on the periphery of town that could provide tax base that opens up more options than a long-term downtown. But if I am skeptical that there's a solution in the short term for the hotel situation that doesn't end up putting the taxpayer on the hook for a serious amount of money. And that, from my perspective, being the only non-located in downtown business, it's awful risky to ask us that aren't right down here in the heart of town to continue to pay property tax and take that risk on the behalf of a private company that maybe should be. I applaud the mayor's decision on turning down the deal that was discussed a few months ago, because the company that was behind the development of that hotel at that point, I forget the number, I don't have it written down, but it was an absurdly small percentage of money that they were putting down, and that's 2%. I mean, you got to be kidding me. The reason we could start a business is because we took 25% of the money that it took to start the business from our bank account and laid it on the table at the bank. make other businesses do that. Don't make businesses that are operating somewhere else take that risk on their behalf.
Thank you all. We have many different types of people here. We have business owners, we have event planners, we have different organizations. I'd love to know, bankers, developers, how can they help businesses? How did you get help in the past from those types of different groups? And how can they better help different innovative businesses in the future?
Well, I think for us, having access to space that we needed with possibility of expansion as we grew was something that was very helpful to us. As I mentioned earlier, the bank arrangements that we have been very beneficial to us, that they've worked with us so we could buy equipment that we needed to do what we do. And so I think also having access to, parking right behind our building, having all the parks, the wonderful location that we have, all of those things have made it a good environment for being in business.
Well, I don't really have a business. It's just real estate. So obviously, key part of that is the different lenders that I've worked with, and that's been key. So I guess my scope is pretty narrow here. It's really working with the city and what they have to offer, and then also the different lenders.
As kind of a destination sort of thing, people book online for our events, and then they figure out how to find us later most of the time. It has been great. The existing variety of businesses around downtown has been fantastic for us as we get, a few hundred people a week, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's pretty good for an escape room. And then they scatter out and have nice opportunities to eat, drink. We do team building groups that have already utilized this as an event space to hold their meetings before and after doing our activities, and just promoting a nice, I guess it's not centralized, but there's such a nice diversity as is in downtown Urbana with a lot of potential for more and more. You can see the potential looking up and down the street. So I'm just excited to get some more development going around here.
Yeah, so excited is a good term. I'm excited about the future of Urbana and Champaign-Urbana in general. I'm really, really, really glad that we decided to open our business here rather than anywhere else around. That's because this community's already got, we've got traction. We're small, but we're big enough that we've got traction so that, for example, out at our place, somebody can Uber out there, and there's always a whole bunch of Uber cars. That's not the case in a lot of other communities around here. We've got enough innovation, economic power, traction, enough people coming in and out. There's idea exchange all the time. That means people are open to different types of beer, which is great for my business model, especially if they like German and American beer styles. But I think that we've got it. I couldn't ask for any more. And that's why banks want to lend to us, because they know this community's got it. I think we would have had trouble financing this size of project if we weren't in this town. But we've got that critical mass here, and that's why I don't think we have to push development too hard. It's happening. Let's let it happen. Let's be critical about it when it doesn't make sense or when it's too risky, but it's happening. I mean, look at downtown compared to when I was in college. It was Todd and John's and Bunny's, and there a couple other places that are fine accounts that move product for us. But they're not the places that you see popping up now, right? This has a different feel. This place has a different feel. Sip Yard has a different feel. I think it's obvious to all of us here, if we go back in time 10 years, that we do have traction in this town and it is going in the right direction.
Before I open up for questions, I know, Memoir, you mentioned that you have some upcoming plans of having possibly an event center. I was hoping if anybody else had anything that was upcoming that they could share a little bit about their plans for the next few years in Urbana for their own businesses.
Yeah, in Champaign-Urbana, we have a big African community. Some on University of Illinois, a lot of students. Some they graduate, and they hope to make some, let's say, some party after graduation, and they say, who can cook for us and make some catering, decoration, and they say, oh, why I can talk to Mike and give me more space. I can make something like that. So I hope so. Maybe next year or this year we can do it.
And can you let people know where that location is as well?
Excuse me?
Where that business is going to be located?
Yeah, it will be the same place where I am now. So it's on 208 West Greg Street. No, just on back here.
Yeah, I mentioned this a little bit up top. We haven't super formally announced it, but we've been telling customers as they come in. We're just starting an 8,000 square foot new location, sort of an expansion, sort of total move across the street into that big crazy building that Mike picked up lately and has been helping us get on renovation plan. That'll be a really neat destination. When we opened 2.5 years ago, we were getting a lot of people saying we were better than most of the escape rooms they played in Chicago, better than all the ones in Indy and St. Louis. And that kind of inflated our head a little bit, but right now we're doing pretty good, and I think we can put together something really neat, leveraging our success and leveraging the art community around here. It's a weird attraction.
Well, our future plans, I want to take a trip back in time 1.5 months to where we commissioned our solar array. Dan Maloney and Riggs Beer Company worked together to finance a 75.9 kilowatt array that essentially powers our entire brewery's electrical demand out there, which was a huge priority for us. It obviously pairs well with the values that this city has, and we're really proud to be able to do that. I just hope that it starts to shine a little bit better than it has been these last month and a half. Our numbers aren't great right now, but they will be when it starts shining. Looking into the future, we kind of take a conservative approach to growth. If my earlier comments didn't allude to that fact, then I will reiterate them on how we operate our business. We don't like debt. We're going to try to pay it down as much as we can. We're going to grow where we think it makes sense to grow and where we have sustainable growth that we can hold on to. And that means that we can probably add about 10 to 30% to our capacity. And then we hang out and operate a business and enjoy running a company, but also try not to overextend ourselves because we want to take over the world. And I would say the last thing, another philosophical thing that we're going to be shooting for in the upcoming years is to use more and more of our grain from our farm and from around the brewery. So right now we're probably at about 15% locally grown grain in Riggs beer. I think next year we'll probably be north of 20, and within a few years we might get up to 50%. That's probably that's a soft goal because it doesn't have dollars or cents necessarily attached to it, but it's one that we attach a lot of value to.
So we have a couple of things on the horizon, I'd say. We are expecting to continue to grow, probably 6 new employees in the next year. We are also completing an ownership transition where the original owners and founders of the company are transitioning to the next level of management so that the younger generation can take and continue the company into the future, which is quite exciting. And the other thing that from a geeky perspective that you guys might see on the road, we just purchased a new device that allows us to determine pavement conditions at traffic speeds using a vehicle that has all kinds of cameras and lasers and things like that. And so hopefully you'll be seeing it out on the road every now and then, and you'll say, what is that thing? And you'll think of us when you see it.
Great. At this point, I'd like to open things up to questions, if anybody has questions for our panelists. If not, I We mentioned the Lincoln Square and the hotel a lot. Our next luncheon is actually going to be on this visioning process that the mayor is doing. So please mark your calendars. That's going to be May 15th, and that's going to be over in Lincoln Square Mall. So thank you all for coming, and I'd like to pass it over to the mayor.
Well, since you mentioned Lincoln Square, I'm going to do a commercial, so you'll really come in May. I've heard the words geeky, quirky, and weird, and I think that's a great slogan for Urbana. We just need to grow in that capacity. But I'm asking our community to envision what Lincoln Square could be. We need to transform that entire site. It's 9 square blocks, 16 acres, 3 main components: the hotel, the mall, and about 8 acres of city-owned parking. This site needs to be transformed. So this visioning process is the first step, is asking the community, what do you want to see there? What do you want to do there? What do you think what can be there? And think in terms of the next 50 years. And contrary to what you think, Matt, development doesn't just happen down here. It takes an enormous amount of work and an enormous amount of planning. So the beginning of this transformation of this site is starting this spring, and it will be the foundation for planning. And we're already getting great community support. People are already emailing ideas, and I'm just really excited about it. But so the planning staff has been working very hard to develop a process to get community input. We'll be having face-to-face meetings. You'll see us out in various events. There'll be an online option as well. And the idea here is to find out what people want, and also to get investors and developers thinking about the possibilities and to see this site as a whole. We've spent a lot of time focusing on the behemoth on the site, and we need to think about the site as a whole and what it can be. And the sky's the limit, in my opinion. So, I mean, it's going to be years in the making, but we're starting now, and I think it's key to our downtown. So we'll stay weird, we'll stay quirky, we'll stay geeky, but we're going to grow in a very good way. And it'll be a place where people can live and bring their families and enjoy 24/7. So see you in May 15th. Thanks, and thanks for coming.